All right, let's jump into this deep dive. Today we're going south of the border
Ooh, the border.
to explore CESISPE. That's the State Commission of the Penitentiary System
Okay.
of Baja, California, Mexico. We've got some internal magazines and official documents
Interesting.
giving us a behind-the-scenes look, kind of beyond the usual website stuff, you know?
Yeah, like we're getting a VIP pass, huh? Seeing how they present themselves, both internally
Right,
and to the outside world, maybe even get a sense of what's really happening.
exactly. So first things first, what exactly is CESISPE?
CESISPE, well, they're the organization responsible for the well-being and social reintegration
Oh,
of
yeah.
incarcerated individuals in Baja, California. They're essentially running the prison system down there.
Makes sense. And they're located across a few different cities, right?
Yeah, that's right. We've got info on facilities in Tijuana, Mexicali, Tecate, and Ensenada.
Oh, wow. So they cover a pretty good chunk of Baja.
Seems like it, yeah. Covering those major population centers.
And they're really encouraging folks to find them on Facebook.
Uh-huh.
Under Comunicación Social y Relaciones Públicas. And of course, they've got a website, www.cesispe.gov.mx.
That's actually pretty key, having that online presence.
I know, right?
It suggests they're at least trying to be transparent and engage with the public.
Absolutely. Now, this is where things get even more interesting. CESISPE publishes a magazine called Revista CESISPE. And get this, it's in both Spanish and English.
Oh, wow, in English too. Why do you think they do that?
Well, it's pretty unusual for a government agency, right, to publish in anything other than their official language?
Yeah, it's not common. I'd guess they're trying to reach a wider audience,
Makes sense.
maybe even internationally, showcase their work, attract some support beyond Mexico.
Yeah, I can see that. So what are they showcasing exactly? What's the vibe of this magazine?
It's actually, well, surprisingly upbeat. It's packed with these positive initiatives, success stories.
Really?
Yeah, a big emphasis on rehabilitation, education programs, inmate achievements.
Not exactly the usual picture you get of a prison system.
I know, it feels deliberate, you know? Like they're actively trying to change the narrative around prisons, emphasize hope and change. Like that story about the couple who got married while incarcerated.
Oh, yeah. I love that one.
Yeah.
And that article about the inmates who graduated, flew their caps and all this.
Yeah, those stories really humanize the experience, don't they?
Totally.
Challenges those preconceived notions about incarcerated people, shows they're not just statistics,
Right.
but individuals with hopes, dreams, and potential, you know?
Absolutely. And it's not just traditional education either. What about that Monologos de la Vagina program?
Right, that theater piece performed at the Tijuana Cultural Center.
Yeah.
That shows their commitment to this holistic rehabilitation idea, addressing not just practical skills,
Yeah.
but emotional and social well-being too.
Yeah.
Creative expression, engaging with the arts.
And they're not just working within the prison walls either. Promoting those school gardens, involving young people in these positive activities.
That community outreach is huge. Breaking down stigma, building bridges between folks who are incarcerated
All right.
and the rest of society. It goes both ways too, right? The community understands the challenges,
Yeah.
and those individuals feel welcomed, supported.
It's all connected. So the July 2024 issue of Revista CESISPE, there was this tribute to Maria de Jesus Villalobos Sepulveda,
Right?
who passed away that year. She was a key figure in the organization.
Yeah.
And they quoted her saying, "En nuestras manos está la óptima reinserción social de las personas y el bienestar de sus familias."
Ah, that's a beautiful quote. It means, in our hands is the optimal social reintegration of people and the well-being of their families.
Wow.
Really sums up their mission, right? Their commitment to the individual and their families.
Speaking of practical stuff, let's talk about their finances.
Okay.
They seem pretty modern,
Yeah, cool.
even offering payments through the BBVA app.
That caught my eye too. That kind of tech.
I know.
It's not what you'd expect from a government agency, let alone a prison system, right?
Yeah. It says something about their desire to be accessible, efficient.
Yeah, and they clearly outline those traditional payment methods too. But the digital option,
Right.
it just shows they're keeping up.
And there's even a monthly deposit limit. No more than 14,000 pesos.
Ooh, that's interesting. Maybe to prevent money laundering within the prison?
Yeah, possibly.
Or ensure fairness, you know? Avoid those power imbalances between inmates.
Could be. And while we're talking details, we have to mention that logo.
The logo.
Yeah, the eagle soaring over a prison framed by laurel branches. What do you think?
It's a powerful image. The eagle, that's freedom, hope. The laurel branch is victory, achievement,
Right.
and the prison itself, it's almost stylized, like a gateway.
You're right.
It's like they're visually conveying this message of transformation, a path forward.
Exactly. Okay, we've covered a lot in this first part of our deep dive. We've learned about CESISPE's structure, their locations.
Yeah, their communication style, even their finances.
It's a lot.
We've seen how they present themselves to the world, how they talk about their mission. It's clear they're trying to change the narrative around prisons, emphasizing rehabilitation and reintegration, not just punishment.
But we've really only scratched the surface.
Yeah, just a glimpse.
So what about the reality on the ground, right? Do these programs actually work? What challenges are they facing? We'll dig into all that in the next part of our deep dive.
Looking forward to it. This is turning out to be a fascinating look into prison reform and the human stories within the system.
Definitely. Stay tuned, everyone. Okay, we're back and still digging into CESISPE. We've seen all this positive messaging, the focus on rehabilitation.
Right.
But what do they actually do? What kind of programs are we talking about here?
One thing that jumps out from these publications is the emphasis on education
Okay.
and vocational training. We see articles about inmates learning trades like carpentry.
Oh, like practical skills.
Exactly. Things they can actually use after they're released. Welding, things like that.
That makes a lot of sense. Give someone a way to earn a living.
Right.
And they're less likely to wind up back inside.
Exactly. And it's not just about the skills themselves. It's about building confidence, a sense of purpose.
Yeah.
We even see mention of literacy programs, even university-level courses.
Whoa, wait. University-level courses? For inmates?
Yeah, it's pretty remarkable, the range of opportunities they're trying to provide.
That goes way beyond what you'd normally expect, right?
It really does. And it highlights something crucial about successful reintegration.
What's that?
It's about personal growth, development. Without that, it's so hard to break that cycle of going back in.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
And it's not just about the individual either, right? There's a big emphasis on family, community involvement.
Absolutely. There was this one article, really touching, about inmates gardening with their kids.
Oh, that's sweet.
It allows for that positive interaction, helps maintain those family bonds.
Which can be really strained.
Oh, absolutely. By incarceration, you can imagine how valuable that is.
Both the inmate and the family.
Exactly.
There's also mention of support groups for families.
Yeah.
And even programs to help former inmates find jobs, housing.
It's a comprehensive approach, recognizing that reintegration.
Yeah.
It involves the whole support system, the community.
It's a big web.
Mm-hmm.
But, gotta acknowledge, we're getting a very curated view here.
Oh, for sure.
This is essentially CESISPE's PR.
Right, absolutely. These magazines are highlighting achievements, promoting a certain image.
So we don't really know what they're struggling with.
Right, exactly.
Or how well these programs actually work on the ground.
We need a healthy dose of skepticism.
I think so.
To get a truly balanced view, we'd need more. Independent reports, statistics on recidivism.
Right, the hard data.
Yeah, interviews with former inmates, families. That'd give us a much richer picture.
That's something for our listeners to think about. This deep dive is a glimpse.
A starting point.
But there's always more to this story.
Always.
And it's important to remember the context here. CESISPE is operating within the Mexican prison system.
Right, which has its own unique challenges.
Exactly. We can't analyze them in a vacuum.
Nope. Things like overcrowding, corruption, gang violence, that's all part of the reality.
And those things definitely impact CESISPE's work.
No doubt about it. We have to consider those broader societal forces at play.
Right, the bigger picture.
What are the political influences, the economic constraints? Those are all worth exploring.
So let's zoom back in a little. We know CESISPE has facilities in Tijuana, Mexicali, Tecate, and Ensenada.
Right.
Are there any notable differences between those locations?
Well, based on what we've got, it seems each city has its own designated facility.
Okay.
Unidad de Atención Integral y Servicio Penitenciario.
Which is?
Basically, comprehensive care and penitentiary service unit. And they even list the hours.
Really?
For each one. Impressive level of detail.
I know, right? It suggests organization, structure.
Definitely. And those details are valuable, especially for families trying to visit loved ones.
Oh, yeah. Imagine trying to arrange a visit and not knowing the hours.
Nightmare. Makes you wonder, do the programs vary by location, too?
That's a good question.
Or are they standardized across all the CESISPE facilities? Sadly, we don't have the answer.
Yeah, not in these materials anyway.
It's possible local resources, community partnerships play a role.
That makes sense. Okay, let's shift gears. Back to those financial practices.
Okay.
They've got this surprisingly modern system.
It is modern. Clear instructions for traditional payments. and the BBVA app.
And they even list those reference codes.
Yeah, for different facilities.
That's pretty high-tech for a prison system, wouldn't you say?
It really is. Challenges those assumptions we have about bureaucracy.
For sure. And it reinforces their commitment to transparency, efficiency.
Right. They're making it easy to support loved ones financially.
And that monthly deposit limit, no more than 14,000 pesos.
Yeah, still thinking about that. Could be to prevent money laundering, or maybe avoid power imbalances, exploitation inside.
Like a safeguard?
Exactly, for both inmates and the institution.
So we've seen a lot pointing to CESISPE being organized, forward-thinking, clear communication, strong visual identity, modern finances, focus on rehabilitation, community.
It's a lot. And it's easy to get swept up in that positive message.
Right.
But, crucial reminder, we're only seeing a curated snapshot.
Yeah, CESISPE's highlight reel.
To really understand their impact, we need to go beyond these materials.
Get those diverse perspectives, more data.
Exactly.
All right, in our final part, we'll tie it all together. What does this tell us about prison reform in Mexico?
Big questions.
What lessons can other countries learn? Stay with us. Welcome back to our deep dive on CESISPE. We've really uncovered a lot, haven't we? About their structure, their programs, their whole approach.
It's been fascinating, really, peeling back those layers.
So let's zoom out a bit. Look at the bigger picture. What does CESISPE's approach tell us about prison reform in Mexico? Big question.
Well, I think CESISPE represents a potential shift,
Right.
in how Mexico thinks about the purpose of prison.
Okay, how so?
They seem to be moving away from that purely punitive model,
Okay.
embracing a more rehabilitative one, subtle but important.
Yeah, they're really emphasizing second chances.
Right. Education, job training, family connections, it's all there.
It's a different approach.
And it's significant because globally there's this growing recognition that just locking people up doesn't work.
Right.
It doesn't solve the root causes of crime. It doesn't really reduce recidivism.
It's about breaking the cycle.
Exactly, not just punishing people for being stuck in it.
So it seems like a more humane approach, but is it actually effective?
That's the million-dollar question, right? And honestly, we don't have enough info to say for sure.
We've got to remember, we're relying on CESISPE's own presentation.
Right. Their version of the story. It's essentially marketing.
So take it with a grain of salt.
For sure. I'd need more research to assess the long-term impact. How do their programs affect recidivism rates?
Right. The real measure.
Imagine tracking the journeys of individuals who went through those programs. What are their stories? What challenges do they face?
Yeah, that gives us a much clearer picture.
Definitely. And can't forget, CESISPE operates within the Mexican prison system, which has its own baggage.
Oh, absolutely. Overcrowding, corruption, gang violence, can't ignore that.
Nope, those systemic issues definitely influence CESISPE's work. It's all connected.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, I'm left with a question for our listeners. How do we balance the need for accountability with the desire for rehabilitation?
That is the core issue, isn't it? It's a question societies all over the world are struggling with.
It's about holding people responsible, but also recognizing their humanity.
Right.
Providing those opportunities for growth, change. Not an easy balance.
It requires a whole shift in how we view prison,
Punishment or rehab? Retribution or restoration?
Maybe CESISPE gives us a glimpse of a future where those aren't mutually exclusive, where we can hold people accountable and empower them to transform.
A model worth studying for sure. This deep dive has given us so much to consider. CESISPE's approach, their commitment, the complexities they face. We encourage you, our listeners, to keep exploring these issues.
Yeah, seek out those diverse perspectives.
Think about the role we all play in shaping a more just, compassionate world.
Thank you for joining us again.